Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sinead Says podcast. Hopefully you all enjoyed last week's new structure, and hopefully you will all appreciate the fact this is the second time I've recorded this because we were having technical difficulties, and hopefully my flow is still the same as it was before. So yeah, hope you're enjoying the new podcast. You're all caught up. We have some people writing in this week. We've got some questions to answer. We have the sections to go through. We are here for it. We've got this. How are we all feeling today? I am feeling great, apart from the fact this is the second time I've went to try and record this. So hopefully it works now. Because I'm like, I hope I remember everything that I said. Well, hopefully. Yeah, everything went really well last week. You guys were so kind to me. I was so nervous about talking about my relationship. I was so nervous. Just, I don't know. I don't know what I was expecting, but whatever I was expecting in my head is not what I got. So thank you so much for all the support and love and kind words and everything. It's so funny because Sam was like, a few questions about what was said. And I was like, put them on a voice note if you want to come on and talk about it. So sorry. He might send the voice note before this is up, but if not, we'll get that another week. But he was like, what about this? And I was like, I know, but like, is that not what I meant? But yeah, that's funny. So the structure of the podcast, what I learned this week, quote of the week, and they say section where you tell me everything that you want me to answer, and also just your comments, and I just enjoy it. And also anyone who writes in, we're going to send them some gifts, we're going to send some books to people, and I just love doing that anyway. Like, I'll be chatting to someone on Instagram, like someone will just write me a question and then I'll chat to them, be like, this book will be unreal for that, and then I'll send them the book. I love doing stuff like that. So there we go. So what I learned this week, all right, so I am currently reading a lot of psychology, reading a lot of psychotherapy, because I'm trying to weigh up what exactly I want to do with my life in terms of my degree. So obviously I've done all these different types of courses, but I've had fancied doing a degree since before COVID. My whole plan was to come over here and go on a student visa and do my degree. Now I'm just waiting on a permanent visa so I can do this, because when you're on like a short-term visa, I'm on a work and holiday visa. That visa, you know, you can't go in and be like, hello, can I do a 3-year course? They'll be like, what visa are you on? I'll be like, well, it's over in October. So I'm sort of waiting for my visa to be accepted. And in the meantime, I have to do temporary things, which is also what my therapist said. Probably not grounding enough for me right now, because I'm feeling like I really want to be grounded, but I'm also feeling, but you know what? If you're an expat and you live in a country where visas like this, you know how I feel. You know how it feels to feel that feeling of like non-permanent residency. But hopefully we'll get there one day. I just think we're just kind of running a wee bit behind because COVID, but we'll get there. So yeah, I'm reading a lot of psychotherapy and psychology books, learning a lot of new things per week that might help you, which I get so excited about. Every time I learn about something, I'm like, blah, blah, blah. And like, I turn around to my friends and they're probably like, what is she talking about? I'm like, I can't wait to tell this to my podcast. But anyway, so yeah, let's get into it. I don't know, what do you think? Should we have music? No, that's chaotic. We can't be dealing with that. No, I think we need a new tune. No, okay. Can we do this again? All right, what I learned this week. Yeah, that kind of fitted. That's all right. We'll do that. What I learned this week. So there's a few words that I want to talk about. The word that I firstly want to talk about is the word transference. All right, I'll give you the official meaning, but then I'll give you one thing that I always feel like is my gift is taking words from books or explanations from psychology or anything like that and making them simpler. Okay, because as soon as I read something, I'm like, oh, and then it's like I have this brain language that changes everything so that you and everyone else can understand what it means. This is actually from the book The Road Less Traveled. It's a new psychology of love and traditional values. Basically a psychotherapist talking about all his lessons through all his patients. Very good. If you're interested in psychotherapy, you'd be interested in that book. So he talks about transference, and transference is the set of ways of perceiving and responding to the world, which is developed in childhood and which is usually entirely appropriate to the childhood environment, but which is inappropriately transferred into the adult environment. So basically, in psychotherapy, they kind of work with a thing called like maps. So we all have our maps of how we react to the world, how we see the world, how we perceive the world. And you know, my map is going to be completely different from your map. Like, how, think of your map as like how you love, how you feel loved, how you validate yourself, all these ways that just make up you. And people go to therapy because their maps are stopping them from their desired outcome. So a good example of why people go to psychotherapy is when they attract bad relationships, they attract the same type of man or woman into their lives, and they kind of know that it could possibly be their roadmap in life that may be stopping them. So an example even of transference in that aspect would be that how we learn and develop what love is can be transferred into our adulthood. So how you seen love as a child, maybe through relationships, through society, TV, how you were loved by your caregiver can now transfer into your adult relationships, because that is how you learned how to love. That is how you learned what love is. Now, we always get this aspect of people, like people always ask me, why do I think he's too nice? It was too nice. Like I literally get that all the time. Why do I not like him when he's too nice? And I always say, it's because it's so unfamiliar to you. It is so unfamiliar to you for someone to tend to your needs and be a nice person. You are used to chaoticness. You are used to love being pulled and taken back, pulled and well, as in like pulled and push, pull and push. You're used to those kind of ways to learn how to love, and sometimes this can transfer into your relationships. Like when someone is actually so nice that you're like, that doesn't actually equal love and like and validation to me, because that's not what I'm used to, and that's not what I'm familiar with. So that's like an example of, and then in psychotherapy, they will work with the maps in order to change them. And the awareness of the maps is how we overcome all these things that are sort of like, you know, kind of keeping us stuck in our same ways and patterns. And another good example of transference is something we were talking about on my Instagram the other day. So first of all, no, a big, massive no-no, unless you truly, truly mean it. This has got to do with relationships we're talking about here. You should never, ever threaten a relationship unless you fully mean it. Now, I'm not talking about if your partner is acting up and breaking your boundaries all the time and you tell him, if you continue this, I will break up with you. You mean that. I am talking about someone who threatens a relationship, like, oh, maybe we should break up then. And you know, you don't know because you're in the relationship, but this person does not mean this. What they do want is pleading and begging. And why is this? Because usually it's a transference of how they perceived love as a child. This actually wasn't in the book. This is just like when I actually seen, well, it's actually Love Island that sparked this conversation on my own brain about threatening the relationship and how it can be transferred into relationships, because sometimes people live on this like, I'm going to break up with you. Like they are literally living in the kind of superiority of the relationship while the other person is living in fear, and they're kind of like begging and doing everything for them so that this person does not leave them. And this is sometimes because of a transference from childhood. Like you think about a time, like if you have parents that are very busy, and this is like with psychotherapy, we do look back at parents and child relationship a lot, but you know, sometimes it's just something you picked up and you couldn't rationalize. So let's just say your parents are very busy, they work a lot, but let's just say you were very sick and you would get attention, and then next thing you would just pretend to be sick all the time because you got this so much love and attention. Or say you just didn't get that much attention until you threw a tantrum, and then they were like, what are you doing? Like you were getting that love, that validation, and this is being transferred now into your adult relationships. It's how they see love. It's how they see validation. It's how they feel safe. It's how they feel like they know they're loved whenever someone's begging for them. And this is actually, it's a very manipulative tactic. And when I spoke about it on Instagram, he was like, that's narcissism. And I said, it's not exactly narcissism. Narcissists do this as a way to manipulate, but also this can be an unconscious transference from childhood, in my opinion. Like, I don't know, I'm just saying that because I do feel like this is something that can be healed within someone, because when you're used to a certain way of feeling love, like being begged and being pleaded after, then you don't know any other way. So this is how you know, until the unconscious becomes conscious. So places like therapy, places like me telling you this right now might wake you up and be like, oh my God, I do that. And why do you need to stop this? Because first of all, this is not even real love, like what you're experiencing, because you're superior. You're not even tending to this person and they're not tending to you in a way of as loving. And so we'll talk about the definition of love in a minute, because we're talking about that in today's podcast. Love is, wanting the best for somebody else and wanting their spiritual growth, your spiritual growth, and you go together. And that's what really like love is. It's not this pleading and attachment and dependency on each other. It's real love is like, commitment and, looking after each other and tending for each other's needs. So what you're experiencing there, you might be feeling safe and secure in that moment, but also what happens when someone doesn't feel, when you're threatening the relationship, you're saying, oh, I'm going to break up with you if you do that, and you don't actually mean it. What that person does is they live in fear and they feel insecure. All right. So they're very insecure and they live in fear. So if you really love someone and you want to be with it, like this person wants to be with you. So what do? They just do everything that you say. Okay. What do you want me to do? They live in fear. And someone who lives in fear is not someone who's, you do not want your partner to be living in fear, because they're not truly themselves. They mold themselves to you. And they do whatever you want. And that's not real love then? If you love them, you're not even loving the real them. You know what I mean? And love is all about accepting each other exactly how we are. So I just want you to remember and get into the other person's brain of like, if you actually think you need the begging and stuff to feel safe, then the other person, think about how they feel and think about how fearful they feel. And that's not real love. And you really don't want to be in this position. You need to stop. You need to stop. And how do we stop? We stop usually by bringing awareness to this and noticing that this isn't really what you do to someone that you love. All right. And you don't. And then also, if you know that feeling yourself as well, let's just say that person was like, I'm going to break up with you. You know that feeling of helplessness, that feeling of fear. It's the most horrible feeling. You never want to put your partner through that. You want to build a relationship where you're equal together, and then you blossom in that together. So the first bit is awareness, and then you begin to like melt away from that, because there is other types of love, and you can feel love by being fully vulnerable, and you can feel love by, having a partnership rather than you being on this pedestal and them being, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Hopefully you know what I mean. But hopefully if you're experiencing this with someone, or you are this, like, don't see it as like, this is something that I feel can be sort of with awareness, and you don't want to do this anymore. And you know that it's usually because that other person feels insecure and unsafe, and in a way to feel loved and have more control is that like the person is begging, and the person that is begging and the person that is insecure, what happens when people are insecure and they're not getting their needs met in that relationship? So this person's obviously not getting their needs met in their relationship because they're feeling fear. So they're doing everything for that person to not break up with them. So what happens when someone is insecure, all right, and they're not getting their needs met? This person goes to a club. Somebody is giving them attention. Oh my God, they are filled with so much dopamine and so much want. This is all I ever wanted, someone to tell me that I'm amazing, and not tell me this and tell me that they're going to break up with me. Like, they are just melted by all this. And this is when cheating sometimes comes in. Like, I feel like all these behaviours can sometimes happen from all this insecurity, because they are feeling this want and attention from someone else when they're feeling so insecure and not wanted in another relationship, that it's sometimes that's when like attention goes elsewhere and these problems arise in relationships. Sometimes it's good to look back at your old relationships and see if this is something that came up for you, or when you do, when people seek attention from other people in relationships, like that's when you stop and go, okay, what's wrong in my relationship? Like, why am I enjoying this behavior? Why am I enjoying this attention? Why am I seeking it? What am I not getting over there? Sometimes this is like a reason, and sometimes why people cheat, because yeah, and it's sometimes good to look at it. There's many reasons people cheat. So that's just one of them, and there's plenty more. And we can, if you want, put in the they say section, and we can talk about cheating if you want. So yeah, that was one thing I learned. And transference is when you're using your old patterns, and if these old patterns are forming into your new life, what do? You bring awareness to them, you read about them, and you get all the knowledge about them, and you can change. Like, I personally do believe that you can change through all these things, and you get your maps changed in your therapy room usually. So, oh yeah, we can just pop in the sponsor here, which is an online therapy platform, BetterHelp. you know what I mean? I'd use BetterHelp for all these things as well. Like if triggers come up or I'm feeling like, usually when triggers come up, I just usually just go to my therapist and then we sort it out. And as soon as that awareness comes up, that is when we can make changes, and that is when we can have beautiful, loving relationships and feel real love. And I hope that some of you get to experience all that. And if you're having any troubles with relationships or breakups or somebody threatening to leave the relationship, like, this is a great place to go, and it's also very affordable. So if you want, you can get 10% off your first month with betterhelp.com/Sinead. That is betterhelp.com/Sinead. And as always, send me reviews of your therapist, etc. We're also going to have a few bonus episodes with us completely talking to therapists as well. I just think that's really necessary, because you are asking loads of questions and the therapist is going to answer loads as well. So that's a cool thing. So that was what I learned, transference. So remember that, quite interesting. So for you to have a journal prompt now, you could say like, what is it that I bring? What kind of behaviours do I bring in from childhood, or what things could be brought up and looked at? You know what I mean? If you're bringing the unconscious conscious, then change can be made, you know. And then another thing that I learned this week was, you asked me last week, we were talking about, I said I was scared of the love drug, which is like the falling in love, like, because you're so mesmerized by the other person, all your hormones are up in the air, blah, blah, blah. And I wanted to talk about what love is through the books I'm reading, like psychology, psychotherapy. There's all different theories on like what love is and what it should be and what it feels like, etc. But I think as well, like, because it's such a feeling, it's hard to do research on the feeling of love, I suppose. But what I wanted, so basically people are like, what do you mean? Like, you wanted to get rid of the love drug before making a decision? Because psychologically speaking, falling in love is very different to real love. And falling in love is obviously your hormones are everywhere. You just literally lose yourself. You lose yourself and just become merged with this person. And the act of falling in love, in certain theories and books, some therapists would say that you have a loss of ego boundaries, and your ego boundaries is when, like, you literally lost your sense of self and you morph into one person. And a very similar way to describe this is when a child and a mother, when a child is like a literal baby, and that baby has no ego boundaries, and that it doesn't have itself yet, doesn't really know how to move its hands, fingers with its own knowledge. So if it cries, it gets a bottle. If it needs to go to the toilet, it gets like, that baby literally thinks that the mum is an extension of itself. I cry, you give me da-da-da. It's like the loss of ego boundaries. You become sort of one person, and then as you grow up and start to walk and function, you realize that your mum's not on bacon call all the time, and that and you lose your ego boundaries and you become a sense of independent dependent yourself. So when we fall in love, these therapists say that you lose your ego boundaries again. You literally become one person. Nothing can stop you. The world is your oyster. Nothing can make me feel bad, because I'm falling in love. I'm in love. The hormones are around my body. You feel like you could heal the world, and you become together. Like, you want to do everything together. You want to see them all the time. So this is the act of like falling in love. And there were some things to describe it in my Kindle notes, because I was reading about it. So falling in love is like the temporary collapse of ego boundaries that constitutes falling in love as a stereotypic response of human beings to a configuration of internal sexual drives and external sexual stimuli, which serve to increase the probability of sexual pairing and bonding, so as to enhance the survival of the species. So in other words, falling in love is just a trick that our genes play in order for the survival of our species. All right. So like, all these hormones are there to make us mate. And it is like this almost trick. But anyway, so we have falling in love, and then we have being in real love. And whilst falling in love is not itself love, it is a part of the great and mysterious scheme of love. So it is the way to this real love. And then what real love is this, I love this quote actually. Two people love each other when they are quite capable of living without each other, but choose to live with each other. Do you know what I mean? So, and this is why we're going to talk about another thing. So we're talking about what love is not, okay? So love is not falling in love. And then love is also not dependency. And in this book as well, I learned this thing called passive dependency disorder. And it's basically when you're very dependent on this person for your happiness. And we have talked about this before, so I won't talk too much into it, but it is people to believe this is love. And this is something that I learned in therapy as well. This idea of, also what I learned in therapy is like, I remember being like, oh, he's the one. Like, how can I live here? Like, this is not a vibe. And what you realize is like, there's not really any, like for me, there's no such thing as the one, and believing that that someone is the one is so detrimental, because you can be in love with many people in your life. And when your needs and wants and values is the same, it works out so beautifully, and you can fall in love over and over again. And I think this idea of like the one and he's the only person for me is more dependency on this person. More dependent, and that is not real love. That is attachment. We are attached to this person. And if you feel like this and your relationships are like this, like maybe you feel like you can't live without them or anything like this is dependency, and it's not real love. So this is why we need to distinguish between what real love is and dependency. And then we want to flow into this, and you can learn how to be dependent and be your own independent self in a relationship by doing things on your own, having hobbies, having friends, like making sure you don't put all your happiness into this one person. Like, you need to be having your own things. And like I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was having trouble with a breakup, and I said, I know this sounds weird, but like I just said to her, I was like, if me and Sam broke up tomorrow, the both of us would be okay. Not tomorrow, but if me and Sam broke up tomorrow, we both know we're going to be okay. Like in the long run, yeah, it's going to be sad, but like I'm not dependent on his happiness to live, and he's not dependent on mine, and that is the most healthy relationship. But sometimes people are filled into this like crazy attachment love because it feels so intense. Like, I can't live without you, I can't do anything without you. That's really, really intense for people, so they kind of get really caught up in this. But real love is that exact words, what I just said. Two people love each other when they're quite capable of living without each other, but choose to live with each other. You know what I mean? So basically, when the person rules our lives and dictates the quality of our existence, so if your person or your relationship or something or someone dictates the quality of your existence, then we have something more than just dependency as well. Needs or feelings, we are dependent. So we are very dependent if the other person dictates the quality of our existence. If they're annoyed at us, we're so sad. Like if they aren't there, we are in bits, and that is why we need to understand that is not real love either. That is dependency, that is attachment. And hopefully we can learn to have a sense of self, and how to become less dependent is gaining your own sense of self in your relationship, doing little things that you love, and gaining your own personality. Because let's just say I broke up with my boyfriend now, I know that he would be okay, and I would be okay at some point in our lives, because he's got so much things that make him happy. Like, he does triathlons and he does marathons and he has all these little things that make him happy. He's got all these friends and all these things, and I have all these little things that make me happy. Like, I love getting up and doing my reading, I love going to yoga, I love like all my friends, and everything is so not on him, and all his happiness is not towards me. Yes, I make him happy, and yes, we love each other, but it's not like that dependency, and that's what we need to strive for in our lives. And then the next one is like, I will talk about more about real love, because they did talk about real love in the book and what it means, because obviously what it is not is falling in love, and also what it is not is dependency. And what real love is like when you really want the best for this person, you really want them to be happy, and you want them to have spiritual growth. You want you to have growth in your life. You love yourself, and then you love them, and you want to see them do really well. And in the book, they talk about this way of love is, when you have a child and your child is so young, like it's a little kid, but it's trying to get out of conversation, trying to get out words, but obviously it's only learning to talk. So, and you sit there and you have patience, although it's boring for you, and your brain, like that's taxing on you, to sit and listen to something, that what the baby is probably going to say, or what the child is going to say, but you have patience. And that child, and in these therapy books as well, it talks about how the child really, really, that really affects the child if you're sitting and listen to it. Like, it makes it feel heard, makes it feel loved, makes it feel wanted. And, that is definition of love, because they just say that, like, that's boring for an adult to sit and listen to a child try to get its words out and try to get its conversation. They're talking gibberish. But like the patience is like real love. You know what I mean? It's something that you don't necessarily don't want to do, but you do it for love and you want the spiritual growth for this person. And then there's this story in the book as well about this therapy patient, and he talks about his mother never letting him get in the school bus and always driving him to school and like really protecting him. And that is not allowing it to have its own spiritual growth. You know what I mean? So that can be dependency as well. And like you need to allow the people that you love to have their own growth. And sometimes even like when you think about someone, I always get messages from people like, oh, my boyfriend doesn't want me to go traveling and I want to go traveling. And like if that person loved you and like that's something you want to do, like that's for your spiritual growth. Like if they need you to stay in the country, like that would feel almost like they're dependent on you to be there in order for their happiness. So it's like you want the best for these people and you come together as a team. And there's all these different ways of like, they talk about, and it's so funny because I actually was like reading the book and said to Sam, I was like, when did you feel like you like loved me? And he's like, when I was in the gluten-free aisle. I was like, what? And he's like, well, I was in the shop and I was shopping for gluten-free bread and I was thinking, fuck, I love this girl or something. I was like, right, okay, that actually made. And then I was reading the book and I was like, that fucking makes so much sense, rather than like all the hormones and all things. Like it's something he doesn't want to do. And then it also talks about this in the book as well. Like you listen to your partner talk about something they love so much, but it feels boring to you, but that's real love. Like that's kind of hard for you, but you love this person so much that you do all the hard things and do all the things you're not interested in. It's a lovely little book. I'm kind of like in the middle of it, so I might get back to like the more things of real love, but I just wanted to say like what love isn't and what love is. So another note on like real love is like genuine love implies commitment, and when we are concerned for someone's spiritual growth, we know that a lack of commitment is likely to be harmful, and that is why it is like true love. Do you know what I mean? Because when you lose that falling in love stage and you choose commitment because that will help the spiritual growth of another person, that sort of means like that is like what real love is. Like even when you're not feeling too good, you still act lovingly, if you know what I mean. And this person, like they make a commitment to be loving, whether or not the loving feeling is present at that moment. So it's almost so much better because the commitment to love, the will to love still stands and is still exercised at all points because you've committed to that love, if you know what I mean. So when your partner like comes through the doors and they're like, you're in say you're in a bad mood and like you're not feeling too, I don't know, and they come through and they're upset, like you put everything aside to be loving towards them, even if you're not feeling a loving feeling inside your body at that moment, like you're not feeling good in that moment, you do everything for their spiritual growth. That was actually a lot. Sorry, that was a lot that I learned this week. Hold on, wait, I get the. We are going into yes, it's time for quote of the week, the next section. Sorry if there is a few technical difficulties today with my Roadmaster, so hopefully that we figure it all out. So this is the part of the podcast where I tell you a quote and let you think about it. And I have so many quotes. It just made so much sense because I have a million books. I just pull them out, get something I've highlighted and just go for it. So the quote today is by Brianna West. Brianna West wrote the book 101 Essays to Change the Way You Think. Unbelievable book to pick up your spirits in all aspects of life. It makes you feel so good, and I was so excited to read that book every single day. So it's a great book to begin with. So the quote is, whenever there is a problem in your life, there is a problem with how you're thinking, reacting, or responding. Whatever you feel you are not receiving is a direct reflection of what you are not giving. Whatever you are angered by is what you aren't willing to see in yourself. And this could be, if there's a problem in life, here's a few problems that I have been having. I'm having I'm having a problem going to the gym at the minute. I'm having problems with like motivation to go, getting up early is hard, blah, blah, blah. And that problem has got to do with me, how I'm thinking. you know, and what my expectations are and how I'm feeling. Like less for example, maybe if I was going to the gym every day and I was feeling guilty for the one gym, that would be my expectations. My expectations are too high for me to be going to the gym. So therefore it is a me problem as well, my expectations. And also if I have promised myself to go to the gym 3 days a week, which is exactly what I do, and I think it's good for my mental health, it's good for how I feel, it's good for my endometriosis, it's good for everything to work out. So there, if I'm not going to those 3 days a week, then I can look at how I'm thinking and what my perspective of this is, you know. And like if it's a problem, like this morning Sam didn't set an alarm because he wasn't going to the gym today, and I thought he was going, and I was like, why didn't you? And then he was like, but it's not his responsibility to put his alarm on for me to get up. And then like when the alarm went off, I was like, oh no, it's cushy. If you're gonna go and I'm not gonna go, you know. Obviously it's nice to do things like that as well, but then I could say, oh, I'm so annoyed. I could internally annoy myself that day and say, oh, I should have went. When in fact, you know, it's not the problem, it was like how I'm perceiving it, if you know what I mean. So I love that. And then they also said like, so this is a good thing to think about then. So where you feel like you're lacking, you must give. Where there is tension, you must unpack. If you want more recognition, recognize others. If you want love, be more loving. Give exactly what you want to get. If you want to let go of something, build something new. If you don't understand, ask. If you don't like something, say so. If you want to change, start small. If you want something, ask for it. If you love someone, tell them. If you want to attract something, become it. If you want to enjoy something, let yourself feel it. I love that because it was kind of like just giving you all the answers. It's such a like, and in a relationship, as we're talking about relationships a lot today, I thought like, you could be like, I'm not getting what I need. He's not this. What about if you are more loving to him or her? You know, what happens then? Because like sometimes when you give love, they understand that felt really good. So then they give it back, you know? And so just like, yeah, love that little quote. So applause. We love that Brianna West. Brianna West is great. Okay, and then the next section is... Ooh, no, like if you're watching me on YouTube, you can literally see me dancing. I can't do it myself. Like I'm literally dancing. Okay, so this is the they say section. Sinead says, and now they say. So I thought like it's a good way to like have more interactions, and I picked up some of your they says and going to send anybody a nice little book. Actually, you can choose. Maybe you want a book. Maybe you want the 21-day meditation course, which is the Brave Way meditation course. 21 days of meditating by me. And it is only with the Sinead says 10 discount. Oh, no, guys, I pressed that by accident. That was not the vibe for that. But anyway, yeah, so you can also have that. I forgot to plug my own business. So that's 21 days of meditation. If you really want to start up leveling your life and changing your vibration and just adding, learning how to meditate, first of all, properly, because people always try meditation and they're like, I can't do it. And I'm like, no, you just need the right teacher and you need the right method. And the Brave Way is a great method. So with the discount, it's only like £38.89 or something. Sinead says 10. I'll put the link in the thing below. So you can have one of those, or you can have like a book or anything like that. So the they say section this week, we are gonna, so like just loads of feedback. Also, thanks so much for the feedback. Was really, really nervous about talking about exam and stuff. So everyone's been so kind and so nice. So thank you so much. Everyone's like, loved it. Can't wait for the rest. Bring on the boyfriend. Oh, he would come on in 2 minutes, guys. You would love him as well. He's so witty and funny. And everyone's like, where is he from? And is he Irish? And I was like, no, he's Essex boy. Someone says, what is one book you recommend everyone reads to learn more about themselves? There's 2 books that I love for this, because what we're talking about today, in terms of like looking at your own patterns, there's a book called I Am Enough by Marissa Peer. She talks about, you know, all the reasons why you think you're not enough from your childhood and how to recreate your enoughness. And then how to do the work. So you would learn lots about yourself in those 2 books for sure. And then there's a bit more deep detailed questions from people, right? And I'm blindly reading these because we decided we wanted to blind read things because Kyle just sent me them over before I started recording. So, hey Sinead, have you any advice on knowing when you should be able to expect more and are not being treated well, or when it is your anxious attachment style talking? For example, if I go on a date with a guy, everything goes amazing. He seems to really like me. He talks about wanting to see each other again, but then seems to go cold on me. Only a reply a day, not making any plans to follow through on meeting up again. Am I right to feel annoyed and that this isn't good enough? Or is it just my anxious attachment style? Maybe it's something you could talk about in your podcast. How to know when your expectations are reasonable or when it's your anxious attachment style talking. I mean, anxious attachment style is kind of like they just really need a lot of closeness to make themselves feel safe. Like they need more intimacy than anyone else. And being an anxious attachment style, sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to be an anxious attachment style. And I'm like, look, it just means that your partner needs to tend to your needs. When you're first dating, your partner does not know anything about you or your attachment style. So therefore, this person can't tend to your needs. When you start to fall in love and like people, you can start communicating your needs appropriately, and that person usually can tend to your needs if they love you. So for example, an anxious attachment style usually just needs a little bit more reassurance because they need a bit more intimacy than normal because it makes them feel safe. Or they need more reassurance. So they might need to, talk about the relationship a little bit more. And they might need, if you're on a night out, they might need you to text when they're home. They might need to, just more reassurance, which is actually not an issue at all. If you know this and your partner loves you and respects you, they will give you what you need without, because I actually talk about this in my book about understanding to who it is that your partner is, like their attachment style, and how to help them and ease them, because this person here, you're just dating him, so it's very hard to communicate your needs because you don't know each other properly. So I would say, you said there's only like one reply a day, and at the end of the day, if this person likes you, they're gonna ask you out again, and you just have to like, because you can't text them and be like, why are you not texting me back at this point in the relationship? And I understand that. But when you get to know this person properly, you can start saying like, I need a little bit more than like one text a day. Like I'm not a massive texter myself. Like I'm not a massive texter throughout the day. And it's not because I, don't like that person. So like you have to also see it from his side as well, that until you actually know why he's not texting you back, you can't assume that it's because he doesn't like you. You know what I mean? So I would say give it time. And then if you end up liking this person and he asks you another date, like then you communicate your needs as an anxious attachment style. Thank you so much for that. And then, hold on, Carol just sent me these because I just didn't want to read them. I just want to like blindly read them. I think it gives it a bit more of a surprise factor. Okay, so remember, if you messaged, we're going to give you a little email. Dear Sinead, oh, this was an email. Love that. Dear Sinead, I absolutely adore your podcast and it's so relatable to my life. The half an hour absolutely changes my perspective. It's a half an hour just out of the world. I'm delighted to hear that you're back in love and so thrilled for you. I'm currently living in Ireland and thinking about moving to New Zealand and then Australia this October. So scared, but need to do it. Looks amazing and don't want any regrets if I don't go and try. Anywho, the reason why I'm emailing is maybe a discussion on a podcast of the guilt of moving on. I don't know if you found this from your previous relationship to your current. I hear you explain that you wanted to keep it separate for a while. I was in a relationship for 8 years and breakup just wasn't between himself and I. So many of his friends and family did get involved. I still miss him and currently haven't moved on, but I feel guilty to try and even move on. Any suggestions? Help a girl out. P.S. Sinead, love the show. Glad to hear you so bubbly and being yourself again. Okay, so with this this guilt of moving on, it's clear here that you and your boyfriend have broken up and you seem to like want to move on, but you're feeling guilty for moving on, and I can understand that feeling as well. Because sometimes you think that your happiness could cause someone else sadness, but also remember that that person had to be let go for them to find what it is, find someone to love them so deeply and so amazingly and accepting for who they are. And you've gave them that gift by letting them go. I think that's a good way to look at it. Like, you have given them a gift to find like the most amazing feeling in the world. And like, sometimes relationships don't work out and it doesn't mean they're not successful. You've learned so much in that relationship. But because we're growing and evolving so rapidly at the minute, it's very different from years and years ago. Like, we have a lot of rapid growth and a lot of self-development. and can happen really quickly because we have so much access to information. So when we develop, sometimes our partner doesn't develop with us and we change, and then our partners are in different aspects of their lives. And it doesn't mean we didn't love them. It doesn't mean that we think they're a bad person. It just means that our values are not the same, and navigating a relationship like that can be very, very difficult and taxing on both people. So just know that you have given him the gift of finding who will truly accept and love him. I think that's what you meant by saying you're feeling guilty for moving on, instead of saying I don't know how to move on. Like, because if it's the other way about, of like, I don't know how to, like, a lot of people will message and be like, hey Sinead, I've been seeing this guy for like 2 years, and I've been broken up with someone for like 2 or 3 years, and I don't really know how to get past it. And there's sort of a difference in like pain and suffering. So pain is usually grief. So when we break up with someone, we should be feeling grief. We should be going through the processes of actually losing their presence and like grieving. And there is this really sad era of like a breakup. But then suffering is avoiding pain, basically. You know, like, it's not giving us that time to grieve. It is literally like, I'm just going to suffer. We're not going to break up. We're not going to break up. We're going to get back together. Like, there's just like complete denial of the pain and the pain. So then this becomes suffering. So for us to move into moving past the relationship and moving on, is we need to fully accept it. We need to fully accept that relationship is over. And even if it's not, like, even if you somewhere in the future you never know, but at the same time, like, you have to accept that this is over for now. And that's when you start to feel the pain and the grief. And then that's when you can fully start grieving, and then you can start moving on. But this here whole avoiding the pain is just downright suffering. So you need to face it head on, and you need to understand and accept, and ask for help, ask for support. Hopefully that answers your question. So we've got another listener here today. Thank you very much for writing in to the They Say section. Hi Sinead, I'm so excited about your podcast is back. Always puts a smile on my face on my little walk each week. I love how you're so open and honest with your struggles with the relationship attachment styles, always contrasting on how far you've come. Gives me hope. I relate to you a lot. Currently moved to Australia, and after a lot of toxic relationships and lack of awareness in the past, I am back on the dating scene and self-proclaimed healed in brackets and seeing someone, but I'm struggling to differ between not liking the person I'm seeing and using it as an excuse to my avoidant attachment style. I'm worried I will ignore red flags and trust someone too much. Could you help me decide where is the line? So excited for next week's episode and happy for you and your new relationship. So avoidant attachment style, you can go back and listen to Attachment Styles podcast. I think it's in season 1. But avoidant attachment style is basically you want to keep everyone at arm's length. You really are, although you don't want to admit it, you do have a fear of commitment. You do have a fear of having someone so close. So therefore you use tactics like all these excuses in your head to keep them at arm's length. With, like, you could be like, oh, they don't read, or they don't do this and they don't do that, and blah blah blah. Like, and basically you never end up in a relationship because you basically get the ick so easily. And sometimes you have to look at the person and be like, does this, right? So before even thinking about the person, write your needs in a relationship. You know, like, do you want to be nurtured, loved, cared? Do they want the person to be thoughtful? Like, write down all the qualities and aspects of a person that you would need and want in your life. And then, you know, have a look at that person. And if they are ticking those boxes, then all these little things, that you are thinking are giving the ick, but then also if there is a list of things that you don't want in a relationship, look at those both lists and see what this person is. And avoidant attachment style is usually recognized by people because it can go unconscious, like these cycles of relationships of like never committing and never, you know, I just haven't found the right one. Like, you'll see a lot of people saying that, like, I just haven't found the right person, blah blah blah, and it's usually like very avoidant, and it's unconscious that they just really don't want, as soon as they get close to someone, they kind of like fear and kind of retract to keep people at arm's length. You know, and it's like, you really like the person at the start, but it's usually, you can recognize it if you really, really like the person, start, you really like everything about them, and then there's a next step, you know, maybe boyfriend and girlfriend, or there's just a next step. And this next step is usually when your brain tries to protect you with your avoidant attachment style, and it's like run, and you actually like retreat a wee bit. But when you know this, it's so easy to navigate a relationship, because like, I'm actually avoidant and Sam's actually a little bit he's like secure, but he has avoidant tendencies, like, you know what I mean? So, I mean, yeah, he's probably avoidant. He's never had a girlfriend. He's 28, so yeah, he probably is avoidant. But I'm very aware of his behaviours. Do you know what I mean? So I understand like what he goes through at certain periods of time because I go through the same, and you know what I mean. So anyway, so these are the types of things where, and also avoidant attachment styles are all people really recognize them when they're literally in front of them as an amazing person. And this is when they go to therapy, avoidant attachment styles, because they're like, I literally had the most amazing person. This person ticked all my boxes, and I like had the ick or something. Do you know what I mean? So it's like looking at the qualities that you want in a relationship, and if they're ticking them, then like sometimes you're going to be activated. And what my therapist said was always like leaning in, and like, what's the harm in like being a little bit more vulnerable and seeing what happens? You know, it's always better to love than to just lose it and just run away. So yeah, like see what you like in that person, and you know, have a look at that and see, and then also lean in, be a little bit more vulnerable, and hopefully that if it's the person that ticks all your boxes, then that will work. But if they are portraying things that you do not need and want in a relationship, then please ask yourself that as well. So yeah, we're just gonna give us a wee clap for the they say section. And also don't forget, if you want a topic, write in, even like anything you want to discuss. You know, we could talk about anything. So think about it, what you want to talk about, and we'll just do that on a topic. So that is it for the week. Don't forget to subscribe and let me know. I'm a little bit rusty today, and I still feel rusty from the times, and then also had such a nightmare with this roadcaster today, so I had to start, was losing my train of thought. So I promise next week I'll be so much better. I think we just had a problem with the lead, and we're all good, and I hope you have an amazing week. And hopefully you learned something here today. So if you learned something, please make sure you give us a review, and don't forget to write into the Sinead Says podcast Instagram or scenarios@SineadHegarty.com. That's scenarios@SineadHegarty.com. So thank you so much, and have a good week.